we're just going to take a vote really quick. Who wants to see my talk, and who wants just to see Charlie draw more willies? I knew it. I knew it. Okay. So yeah, my name's Brian Holt, and we're going to be talking about Futurist code base, which I really don't know what that means. I just kind of made it up, and they said, sure, talk about it. So here we are. I work at this tiny little startup. Anyone ever heard of it? Microsoft, that's how you pronounce it. And warning, this talk contains no willies. I was dying. That was like the best talk I've ever seen. Actually, this has been a really fantastic conference. We've had really fantastic speakers, so can we just get a round of applause for the other speakers? Particularly a bunch of first-time speakers. I really like the way that they organize Cascadia. This conference is super lovely. Lots of first-time speakers, lots of diverse faces up here, not just flannels and beards. And one more round of applause. Can we get a round of applause for the organizers for organizing such a great conference? You all are the best. Thank you very much. And I have one more person, our lovely stenographer, who is doing a lovely job for all of us and making this conference more accessible. If I start saying things, does she have to type it? Like, can I do like affirmations? Like, I am a great person. Sorry. I'll stop. Probably the worst. Okay. Let's actually talk about, JavaScript. Or we can talk about PHP. I don't know. So I work on these two things. Has anyone ever heard of these? No? Okay. So I'm the program manager for Node.js on Azure. So for everyone that's using Azure, and definitely not any of the other products. I also work on VS Code, which is, okay. I kind of like that too. All right. So here's kind of our agenda for what I want to talk about today. What kind of is the future trends of where the industry is going, and why I think it's going to go that way, and how we can kind of prepare for these new people coming into the field. I really liked Jerome's talk yesterday about like preparing your code base for new developers, kind of being empathetic, because like I feel like we hop into a code base and then we kind of like get overwhelmed, and then we forget about being overwhelmed because we get overwhelmed with new things. So we'll talk about some stuff about like that and some other stuff. Yeah, so let's keep going. So my first prediction is that back-end people will do more front-end. So there was a talk about like there's no such thing as full stack, or there's definitely a thing as full stack. I don't know. But who here considers themselves more back-end than front-end? All right, more front-end than back-end. Okay, and there's some people that are lacking an end, but we'll let it slide this time. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is C#. Oh no, I got on a conference stage at JavaScript conference from a Microsoft company talking about C#. I've never written any C# in my entire life, but I feel like this is important to go over because we're going to be getting new demographics into the front-end community, right? So this is a technology here. Is that not going to work? Oh, there it is. No. Oh, there it is. OK. So that logo right there, that is the logo for Blazor. Has anyone ever heard of Blazor? It's a pretty interesting piece of technology. So the idea is that you can write C# and run it in the browser, because we've never tried that before. Then remember used Silverlight before? You can just like see the 1,000-foot glare. It's like, oh, Silverlight. I used to work at Netflix, so I've had to write Silverlight before. So why is this different than Silverlight? So this is going to be different because this is going to be using WebAssembly, right? And so WebAssembly, we're all pretty excited about that. And in particular, why I find Blazor to be really compelling versus other pieces of technology is that Blazor has kind of an adaptive client where you can like have it run mostly on the server, and it just buses the delta to the client. So you can run on very, very thin clients, right? So you can run on things that like basically have no processing and no memory. You're relying totally on the server as long as you have that enough bus to get all that through. Or if you're running on like a really big like MacBook Pro or something like that, you can have everything run in WebAssembly on the client, right? And so it kind of has this like adaptive way of doing that. And that's going to be a very compelling piece of technology for people that don't have like very powerful devices. And that's an exclusively, kind of Blazor sort of thing. But I think as we see more and more WebAssembly adoption in browsers, we're going to see more and more people coming into the front-end community, right? It's been the JavaScript show for a real long time. And we're about to see Go developers and C# developers and Rust developers. And they're going to become our colleagues. And we're going to become people coming in here is like, I'm exclusively a front-end developer, but I only write C#, right? So I think that's going to be up to us to kind of welcome these new people into our ranks, into these kind of conferences, and on Stack Overflow and Slack and all that kind of stuff as well. So should you be worried about this? Like, is everything going to be WebAssembly? I get asked this question quite a bit. Do I think the web is going the way of WebAssembly? Well, no, I really don't think so. One, browsers are real good at JavaScript, right? The V8 team, the SpiderMonkey team, the JavaScript core team, they've been optimizing JavaScript for a really long time, and so it's going to take WebAssembly a long time to catch up. There's a lot of optimization to be done there, so just purely on performance, which is why people think about WebAssembly, it's got a long way to come before it's actually going to get to the point where it's even at parity. The other thing is, like, you all are very good at writing JavaScript, or so I'm told. Right? So you've been doing this for a long time, and so we have a lot of patterns. We've thought about this a lot. Like, we have decades of modules and libraries and history, and we've made a bunch of mistakes, and we've corrected all those mistakes. And new people coming to these communities are going to have to make those mistakes as well, like, because we don't learn from each other. We all know that. Yeah. So, and JavaScript is already very good at building interfaces. It's very oriented towards that. So I think your job is safe for now until Skynet takes over, and then we're all screwed. OK. Front end will own more back end. I feel pretty confidently that this is kind of already happening already. Like, if you go to these conferences, a lot of you identified more as more front end than back end. But of those of you that identified as more as front end, how many of you have written any node code whatsoever? I'm going to guess that's like literally all of you, right? Like, it's kind of hard to get away from it at this point, both from the fact that we want to, right? We want to like own the full stack, right? And a lot of times it's just necessitated. But it's getting easier and easier, right? It used to be a lot harder. And I think a big part of this is going to end up being serverless. So I quite enjoy serverless. So first of all, when I talk about serverless, there's someone like just itching to raise their hand and say like, there's a server. I know. I know that. This doesn't just like magically come back from the ether of responses, right? I know there's a server. One of my colleagues said that you have to worry about the server less, right? That's cute, right? So let's go with that because I don't want to answer that damn question again. So let's qualify what I mean when I say serverless personally. I'm not saying that I'm right, but I'm one on stage with a microphone, so you have to listen to me. When I say serverless, what I mean is that you're built per invocation. You don't have to manage your own scaling, and you don't have to like manage your own instances, right? So you just put code out into some sort of like container function sort of thing, and then it responds to some sort of event, and that kind of all happens, and you're built per invocation of that. And that applies to things like Azure functions, like AWS Lambdas, like GCP Cloud Functions, like all those kind of serverless platforms. Okay? And so this shift from like, if we were still doing like on-premises bare metal servers, I don't think as many of us would be managing infrastructure. None of us would be writing as much back-end code, right? But as we've gotten more towards infrastructure as a service, things like EC2, things like Azure VMs, then that got a little bit more accessible. And then we went to App Service and Heroku and Elastic Beanstalk and App Engine, right? And those got a lot easier to use. I imagine a lot of us use some of those. But now with serverless, you just got to write a function, right? So given this event, go do this thing. And that's pretty easy. Pretty much all of us can write a function, I hope. So kind of to just qualify, again, what I mean by that. When I say bare metal, the thing that you have to manage is all of that stuff. You have to manage who has access to the data centers, who has, like, what's the temperature, right? Like, all these kind of things that, like, I don't want to do that. Like, I barely want to manage the temperature of my own house, let alone in my data centers. Then when you go into infrastructure as a server, you don't have to manage data centers or hardware. You don't have to like refresh the actual server blades, but you still have to manage like scaling sets and server frameworks and upgrading Windows or I don't know, whatever you're running things on. And then when you get to platform as a service, the server frameworks, the business logic, and then when you're at serverless, you're just managing the business logic, right? You don't manage how to respond to requests, you don't manage scaling, you don't manage what runtime you're on. You just say like, give me node and go from there. All right. So that's what I say when front end will begin to own more and more of the back end, and I think there's no way we can get away from that, and I think it's gonna make you as a developer more powerful, right? This additional abstraction allows you to be more productive because it allows you to offload these responsibilities that you used to have to some sort of service provider, and then you get to focus on more of what makes your business different than other people's. So things you should try. That's AWS Lambdas, Azure Functions, and Cloud Functions, right? Because they're all very descriptive of what they are. So you should definitely try at least one of these. One of them. Pretty sure I'm going to get in trouble for that one. All right. So everyone will have access to more code. And so this is kind of what I'm saying, that we're going to be welcoming new people into our midst as well, thanks to something that I like to call the no-code revolution. We had EJ up here from Webflow, which is actually a fantastic product, and it allows people that previously had no access to these kind of like programming superpowers to get in there and make the same kind of cool software that we can, right? It feels a little threatening, right? Like I spent a decade learning this stuff, and suddenly Webflow is giving it away. Thanks, Webflow. Just kidding. I mean, a little bit. I'm a little insecure about it, but so the no-code revolution, I think, is going to allow more people to learn how to code, and there's going to be, I think there's going to be like new development shops where people are just working in no-code kind of solutions. And when I say no-code, what I'm saying is that they don't actually have to learn JavaScript, they don't have to learn PHP or anything like that. It's going to be things like conversational UIs. It's going to be things like if this, then that. It's going to be things like visual designers of saying like, when this happens, then do this. Those sorts of things. And I think that's going to be really important to us going forward in the industry. So I'm going to show you one of these. This is the one that from Azure, and I'm like legally obligated to show you ours versus someone else's. But the idea here is like, I just using like those, 5 blocks made a thing that whenever you upload a picture, it takes it and generates 3 different thumbnails that focuses directly on like the core of the picture. Now I could have written this in code. It would have taken me, I don't know, a day or something like that. I'm real slow when it comes to that kind of stuff. But this took me 3 minutes, right? I just said like, when this happens, do this, do this, do this, do this, and then you're done. So these kind of like tasks are going to become much easier, which is going to become more accessible, right? And I think that's a good thing, right? It's going to welcome more people into our midst. It's going to allow us to go do better things and be faster and do better. The future of coding on the web is getting more abstract. And it's been getting more abstract, right? First there was, binary, then there was assembly, then there was, higher level like C languages, C++, Rust, those kind of system level languages, which then those are used to build things like VA, which allows us to get Node, and those allow us to compile our code to get JavaScript, right? It's just levels of abstraction, and I think this is just one more level of abstraction. So should this feel threatening to us? Yes. No, I'm just kidding. No. No, because someone has to build those tools, right? We need Webflow so people that can work on Webflow. We need Azure Logic Apps so people can work on those sorts of things. Like, we need all levels, right? Has C gone away? No, and we've damn well tried, right? It's still around. I think that's going to be the same with JavaScript. It's not going anywhere. So we still need all of this to enable that no-code sort of abstraction. Just like we need firmware engineers to like make our motherboards work. So the future of our coding tools. Obviously, this is near and dear to my heart. I've worked on web infrastructure for a long time, doing it at Reddit and Netflix and LinkedIn and now Microsoft. The future is contained. And I think, and this is my personal prediction, you can hold me to this one, I think all of you in this room are eventually going to have to learn containers. And the reason why I say that is it makes a lot of infrastructure things a lot easier, right? Like I'm telling you that things are getting more and more abstract. Containers, I think, are the proper level of abstraction, that it makes this kind of shipping infrastructure and moving containers accessible to anyone that's writing code today. So I think that's kind of my invitation for you today, is if you don't know containers, to maybe go out there and start thinking about what can I do about containers. So this opens the idea of like thin clients, like doing development on things like Surface Go's and Chromebooks and these kind of like low-powered clients. I think that's going to become more common as well. It means your environment can exist anywhere. And yeah, I think every developer is going to have to learn containers. And now, if that feels scary to you, there's one thing I want to make very clear to you, that Docker isn't scary, Kubernetes is. People are clapping, it's like, oh yes, yes it is, right? Docker, like making containers, writing Docker files, like you and I can sit down in 20 minutes and like we can knock out like the basics of getting Docker up and running for you personally. Now we're going to need like 2 weeks and a whole team to get Kubernetes even just like halfway standing up, right? So that's why I like to disambiguate that, because people feel like a lot of this, like, I don't know, I felt like terror when I was like, containers, that sounds really scary, and in reality, it's not too bad, I promise. All right, so I got some demos I want to show you. I'm from the VS Code team, so we're going to show you all sorts of cool VS Code stuff. Who in here uses VS Code? All right. I think that was literally everyone. So forgive me, I just got this Windows laptop, and I'm still kind of learning how to use it. So bear with me. So we're going to come in here to VS Code. Oh no, that's a spoiler alert there in the background. Don't look behind the curtain or the window, as it were. Cool. Well, then you didn't see my spoilers. Cool. Well, if this was Mac, I would know how to show it. I don't think I'm supposed to say that either. Well, this is a total mystery to me. Settings? There we go. Show only on one? Why would you do that to me? Show only on two? No, don't do that either, because then I can't see it. All right. All right, I'm just going to code like this. Keep changes, and then we'll do it on both. Duplicate. Thanks, Windows. OK. Keep. So it's smooth sailing so far, right? We're just killing it. OK. So the first thing I want to show you is we're going to go into this project that I have here. Let's make this a lot bigger, right? Everyone can read it perfectly? All right. So we're going to go into, and let's make this a lot bigger up here. Yeah, maximize, good idea. And Control B. All right. So we're going to go into my home directory, and in here I have code, and I have in here some VS dev containers. OK. So here I have inside of this project all of these various different languages. I wrote them all myself. No, that's a joke. I didn't write any of them. So all of these are various different projects that are based on different runtimes, right? They're very different configurations, right? And just like Jerome was alluding to in his talk yesterday, like when you walk into a company, how long does it take you to stand up your environment for the first time? I'm not kidding you. When I stood up my first Netflix one, I think it took me literally a month to get everything connected together. That environment is just wildly complex, right? And like it's almost like a rite of passage to like go and just get like the crap beat out of you while you're like trying to stand up some Java. So in this one, what I want to do is like imagine just walking in, opening your VS Code instance for the first time, and your entire environment just working out of the box. It sounds like a fairy tale, a little bit, right? It's not, right? Let me show you. So we're going to open one, this language called Dart, and I don't know anything about Dart. Does anyone in here write Flutter? I think that guy's just scratching his head. He's not actually raising his hand. So no one here, I guess, writes Flutter. So, but it's a language, right? It's from Google. It's Flutter is based on it. It seems like it's okay. I don't know. I don't write it. But to that exact point, like I don't have to know how to stand it up. Oh wow, I am like out of time. So we're going to go faster, and Brian's going to make less jokes. Okay. So come on. So I'm going to have to get out of this and open in Windows. So I open this project inside of VS Code, right? And the first thing it says, like, hey, this has a dev container configuration. Do you want to run it inside of that? I was like, why, yes, I do. So I'm going to hit reopen in container. It's going to restart it. It's going to fire up a container, and it's going to mount my code into it, and then I can start working inside of it. So you can see here it's opening the dev container. You can see now I'm in this dev container Dart down here in the bottom. And you can see, like, obviously I'm on Windows, but if I say cat etc issue, you can see this is actually running in Debian. Like, how did we get here? Like, I didn't start that, right? So, and now I can come in here and say, let's go into the test project, into bin, and I can just say Dart server Dart, because that makes sense. Dart, I can spell. And then here it says listening on host local 8080. Now if I open my browser here, this is running inside of a container, so if I go to localhost 8080, it's going to say unable to establish connection, right? Reason being is like it's running inside of a container, right? It's not being bridged forward. So what I have to do in here is I have to come over, click this, and say, this is inside the container, Dart. This is hard to read when it's this small. All right. So these are all the containers that I could be running inside of. But here I'm inside of this Dart container right here, and I can click here on this forwarded port. I just click plus right there. And the first thing it says, like, hey, I think you're running on 8080. Do you want to just go ahead and forward that? So I click on that, say open in browser, and I'm on localhost 8080 right there, and I'm running this entire Dart stack runtime that I know nothing about, right? So I think that's going to be a big part of this. It's kind of like the promise of Vagrant, if you remember Vagrant. Does anyone remember Vagrant? And again, people are like, oh, I remember Vagrant, right? I didn't like it either. Yeah, it was hard to use. So, okay, so that's really cool, right? That's kind of, but that still requires me running Docker on my computer. It's spinning up a container. That's a lot of memory. So it'd be much better if I could do something like just connect to like a remotely running computer, right? Well, you can't. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. I'm going to go to online.visualstudio.com/environments. Oh, I have to actually do it inside of Edge because I guess we don't like Firefox at Microsoft. Probably, I guess, shouldn't say that either. It only works in Internet Explorer 6. All right. So let's go ahead and create a new environment here. And this is going to be called Cascadia. And then this can pull from any arbitrary Git repository. I'm going to say bt Holt /node example app, which is just like an example happy.js app. And we'll put this on premium because I don't have to pay the bill. And then we'll say, as soon as I leave this idle, it'll spin it down, right? So just like after 30 minutes of not using it, then shut it down. Okay? So here I'm just going to say create. Oh, and then underneath that, you can say, like, bring in these dot files, activate this shell. You can kind of, like, customize the environment here, right? So while this Cascadia one's creating in the background, I have one here called DevBox already up. This one will take, like, another maybe minute or so. So the first way I want to show you to work with this is we'll come back to here. And I have an extension that allows me to just click on DevBox here, and I can just click Connect. No, I do not. And it's going to open the remote here. It's going to connect to it, log me in, and I'm going to be connecting to this remote box. So you can see here it says VS Online Dev Box, right? So I'm actually connected to a running VM in the cloud that's running all this stuff for me. So I could be on like a Surface Go or even an iPad or a phone running all this stuff because it doesn't matter, right? It's just a really thin client. And then I can come in here and I can edit files and do whatever I want. So here I'm going to say node index.js. And it's already running, so psaux grep node. Oh god, I forgot VS Code's running. That's all node. Index.js. This one, so kill that one. Is it the other one? Oh, thank you. There we go, and then we'll try it again. Okay, and here, then I can just come and say, open this in the browser. And you can see here it's tunneling through. This is actually running in the cloud, but you can see this is running on localhost 3000, right? Now, we can even take this one step further. Three steps further. All right. Last thing here, I promise. They're mesmerized, Carter. They're mesmerized. All right. Now I can run this actually inside of a browser, right? So this is actually just running on Edge, as it were. And I can actually run debugging, all that kind of stuff, but you kind of get the point, right? It's real VS Code inside of the browser. It works today. So go ahead and try it out. It's at, I'll leave the link up here so you can go sign up for it and give it a shot if you'd like. But thanks for coming.